world title in everyone's imagination. That's the heavyweight champ. You were here. Everyone else was here. But since then, the feeling has been Joshua makes all this money fighting anyway, 30 million pounds, whatever it is. Why should he take 40 or 50 to fight Wilder when he's making against anybody? He can make 30, 40 million pounds, whatever it is.
No fantasy contracts, just reality. You know, bringing our worth to the table and bargaining and negotiating what we're worth and making this fight happen.
Which mentality do you come in with? I ask because when you were slick, to me that looked like a better fighter. But maybe this is the kind of fight where you just need to impose your strength.
Anthony Joshua's calm confidence seemed to fill the room as he sat with Max Kellerman before the much-anticipated Jake Paul showdown, a collision that has lit up both boxing loyalists and crossover fans alike. In their conversation, Joshua didn't just break down strategy. He opened the door to the pressure, the legacy, and the spectacle wrapped around this unlikely fight. As Kellerman pressed for truth, Joshua confronted the critics, the stakes, and the unexpected reasons driving him toward a ring shared with one of the sport's most polarizing figures.
Or a heavyweight champion, you're an undefeated Olympic super heavyweight gold medalist, you're entering your physical prime, and you put 100,000 people in Wembley. So I get your argument. I have the economic clout. He's not coming in as partners. I should get a bigger slice of the pie. Let's have a realistic negotiation.
Kellerman, always the master of mixing sharp technical insight with just the right amount of theatrical doubt, locked in on the bigger story swirling around the event. He didn't sugarcoat it, calling this one of the strangest heavyweight matchups in recent memory. Joshua, a former world champion, stepping in with Jake Paul, an internet entertainer turned fighter. So why was this happening? It was the same question millions had been asking since the announcement, and Joshua's answer would shape the entire tone of what followed.
Guy like that, you're not going to outbox him. If you're waiting on him and he's initiating and he's feinting you into counters and then he's countering.
When asked what he respects most about Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua answered with a calm but deliberate tone, saying, he's bringing new eyes to boxing. He noted that Paul, despite his unusual start and having no amateur roots, has jumped straight into the deep end. He's throwing himself into pressure, embracing the heat. Joshua said that what stands out most is Paul's enthusiasm and his willingness to challenge himself at a high level, something that, in Joshua's eyes, puts a brighter spotlight on the sport and pulls boxing into newer, wider audiences.
Paul, does he remind you of any guy that you fought before? Or is this a unique situation that you've never come across?
Very unique situation I've never come across, but treating with the same respect that I give all my competition.
So you got the mental fortitude, he's got the mental fortitude. But what's the one best thing that you pride Jake Paul of having that maybe you haven't seen in other competition you faced so far?
From a physical aspect, I couldn't even mention it at the minute. But from a mental aspect, he offered me the fight. Normally, I'm offering people fights. He's told me, come and fight. So he believes in himself.
What does the word legacy mean to you, AJ?
Legacy, what does it mean? This is why I was actually asking someone, what does legacy mean? I don't even.
The size difference between the two has become a major talking point, and for good reason. What many find striking is that while Jake Paul has always looked solid and strong in his own divisions, the moment he stands beside Anthony Joshua, it turns into a true David versus Goliath scene. Joshua doesn't just stand taller. His frame tells the story of years carved inside the heavyweight ranks. And the contrast when they appear side by side is almost jarring. Even with Paul adding muscle and weight, he still can't match the natural size or presence of someone who's spent a career trading blows with full-fledged heavyweights.
As though Jake Paul is the bigger in this equation. Not for me. Maybe for MVP, Nikisa, Jake Paul, but not for me. I've kind of marked it or titled it David versus Goliath just because of the size difference. Like, Jake Paul's a big guy. He is. He's 6'1", 220, probably fights around, the 200-pound mark. AJ is an enormous guy. Like, he's a big, big unit. And I think Jake realized that when they came face to face. I don't know if that's the first time they've ever come that close. I'm sure they've met behind the scenes. But I think there was a realization from Jake Paul, like, fuck, this is a big dude. It's a very, very big dude who isn't coming to play. Like, there was no play with AJ. That was a press conference that almost sounded like AJ versus someone in the top 10, where AJ's taking it seriously. He's answering the questions direct that Ariel's throwing him. There was no, yeah, we're here to kind of fuck around. This is going to be easy. Give me my money. Let me run back to the UK. This was AJ's like, no, we're taking this seriously. And that ain't a good thing for Jake Paul. It isn't. And AJ's that guy anyway. Like, I would never doubt that AJ would take this seriously. But for Jake Paul, I do wonder if realization is kicking in, or maybe he is just that delusional where he doesn't care. I do, and I've been sort of corrected by a few people who maybe know better, but I do think the Americans don't credit or rate AJ. I do think there's a bit of that. I remember when AJ did the rounds prior to the Ruiz fight, and there were a few people like, yeah, you're not that good. This was prior to...
Nikisa Badarian, CEO of Most Valuable Promotions, the force behind Jake Paul, told Sky Sports that the December 19th showdown with Anthony Joshua is being framed as a truly global event. Badarian admitted that while Joshua brings far more experience, Paul's almost delusional confidence might be the unpredictable X factor that gives this matchup its edge. He also revealed that the fight was rushed into existence. Though the original plan targeted 2026, Paul pushed hard to speed things up, and negotiations were squeezed tight to make the bout a reality now.
A limit for Joshua?
So there's a lot of discussion around the weight. Joshua fought Usyk twice.
Yeah.
Both of those times, Usyk was 221 pounds. Joshua was 240 to 245. When Jake fought Mike Tyson last year, 227 pounds. I expect Jake will come in anywhere between 225 and 230, and Anthony Joshua has a weight limit of 245 pounds.
There will be those, as you're aware, that will look at it and criticise this fight. There already have been, haven't there? They'll say it's a real mismatch. What would you say to them? Are we going to be watching sport at its purest?
I would say it's much less of a mismatch than what you saw with AJ and Francis Ngannou, who a massive man, but relatively no boxing experience. I would say it's much less of a mismatch than AJ's 9th or 10th fight against guys who've been knocked out 20 to 25 times. Given AJ's pedigree, Jake is built for this. Jake is built for the big moments. So do I think it's dangerous for Jake Paul? Absolutely. Do I think it's also dangerous for...
Alexander Usyk has made it abundantly clear that when it comes to Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul, he views the matchup as utterly one-sided. Usyk compared Joshua to a Rolls-Royce and Paul to a Fiat, suggesting there's simply no real way to measure an elite, seasoned heavyweight against an influencer-turned-boxer. For Usyk, the divide isn't about fame or hype. It's about craft, experience, and true physical preparation. He believes Paul is stepping into danger by entering the ring with Joshua, given just how far apart their boxing foundations really are.
The Olympic champion. Yeah. First, Jake Paul is sportsman, YouTuber, showman. Rolls-Royce, Fiat. Listen, it's true. I'm not by any.
Oh my God.
I have nothing better in mind.
Yeah. It's just true. It's business, more money. Only this.
So we need to pray for Jake Paul.
Yes. I will pray Jake Paul because I want fight with Jake Paul in octagon.
Yeah.
Do you think that Joshua should be fighting Tyson Fury next year?
I want this fight. Yeah.
Tony Jeff, an Olympic boxer, offered a different perspective on why Jake Paul shouldn't be dismissed so easily. He explained that Paul has access to every resource a fighter could dream of: elite trainers, world-class conditioning coaches, sports psychologists, top-tier nutritionists, and high-level sparring partners. With his financial reach, Jake can build a flawless training camp without cutting a single corner. Jeff pointed out that Paul understands this is the biggest test of his career, and he'll grind harder than ever to meet it. Beyond that, Jake also holds the advantage of youth. Jeff reminded everyone that in boxing, Youth is one of the sport's greatest weapons. Young fighters recover quicker, push further, and often show up stronger and more energized.
28 years old compared to 36 years old. So I guess the advantage there goes a little bit towards Jake Paul. 28-year-old is better than a 36-year-old. But that being said, we've got talking about experience and everything else. What comes with being 36 years old at Anthony Joshua's level. And then, like I mentioned, the heavyweights kind of seem to prime a little bit older. They'll come down to the height and the weight. This is the big one. 6'1" versus 6'6". 200 pounds versus 252 pounds. We got a 252 pounder in Anthony Joshua. The reach advantage is a lot, which we would expect. Amateur fights, we can see that Jake's only had one, where AJ's had 43, but 43 of them are included at the highest level, Olympic level. And yes, he won the Olympic bloody gold medal, if I don't need to remind you. Then the pro record, Jake Paul has had 13 fights, lost one. AJ has had 28 fights and he's lost 4 with 25 KOs. And the one person that Jake Paul lost to was Tommy Fury. Now, can we compare Tommy Fury with Anthony Joshua? Not at all. It's like night and day. So now I'm going to talk about the rules of this fight, and I'll give you my prediction, which is going to shock a lot of people after this. So, what are the rules? The bout will take place at a heavyweight, obviously. It's going to be 8 3-minute rounds. You might think, well, that's better for Jake Paul, and I'm thinking, not really. It's better for Anthony Joshua because he's just going to go all out for them 8 3-minute rounds. And imagine that, Anthony Joshua blasting at you, 6'6", whatever he is, 250 pounds, throwing big bombs at you. Anyway, both fighters will be using 10-ounce gloves for the duration of the contest. Why have they got that? It says both fighters will be wearing 10-ounce gloves for the duration of the contest. What do you expect? Them to take them off halfway through and switch them to 12s? But I guess these days, anything happens in boxing, right? The boys will follow similar rules to Jake Paul and Mike Tyson in November, but that fight was 8 2-minute rounds and 14-ounce gloves. Not similar if it's smaller gloves and 2-minute rounds. Who wrote this for DAZN? It marks the first time Joshua will have contested.
Veteran heavyweight Derek Chisora has blasted the idea of Jake Paul earning a WBC ranking, calling it an insult to the sport. Chisora argued that real fighters grind for years to climb those ladders, while Paul, who has faced non-ranked or past prime opponents, would be jumping ahead on fame, not merit. He accused WBC President Mauricio Suleiman of selling out credibility for cash, calling it a disgrace to boxing and completely unfair. Chisora stressed that rankings should be earned through real battles, not handed out for clicks or hype. Meanwhile, some analysts have started siding with Jake, insisting Joshua can't take punches anymore and that his chin is finished after past knockout losses. But one analyst pushed back, saying just because Joshua was stopped by another heavyweight like Daniel doesn't mean Jake Paul is suddenly the favorite. Joshua still carries world-class skill, huge power, and years of top-level experience. The analyst added that people are overstating Joshua's decline and that, with discipline and focus, he still has everything needed to win this fight convincingly.
Have said they're going to give a cruiserweight ranking to the winner of this fight. Do you think they deserve one?
I don't think so. I don't know why. It's hard enough for real athletes, for real boxers, to get those rankings, and then suddenly this Solomon Sousa decides to give double ranking because he's getting some greens in his, in his back pocket. No.
Anthony Yarde delivered a far more aggressive take, warning Joshua not to underestimate Jake Paul and urging him to punch him up and treat the fight with full seriousness. Yarde believes Paul is highly skilled at generating hype and drawing massive attention, knowing exactly how to turn any matchup into a global spectacle. And that kind of noise can sometimes distract opponents or make them too relaxed. Yarde said that if Joshua walks into the ring feeling overly comfortable, Jake Paul could seize that moment and catch him completely off guard.
Laughing against Jake Paul, come on. If it's not, there's all these people say, oh, it's all fixed and all this. If that's not true, AJ should go up there and punch him up, But if some funny stuff happens and Jake Paul starts doing the rope-a-dope, there's something must be going on. But yeah, I don't think this fight's crazy. But Jake Paul's a master at getting eyes. He's been like that. He's very smart. No one cares if he loses. He's meant to lose.
Former UFC contender turned boxer Darren Till threw his support behind Jake Paul, addressing reports of the Joshua matchup with blunt honesty. He slammed the involvement of Saudi promoter Turki Alashik as hypocritical, telling him straight up, "Get out of here." till highlighted that Paul enters the fight with nothing to lose, pointing to Joshua's clear vulnerability under pressure and noting Joshua isn't the strongest mentally. He insisted that Paul's mental toughness could give him a real edge if this bout ever comes to life.
Anthony Joshua, as much as he's a monster, he's got a weak mind, hasn't he? So Jake could end up getting into it because Jake's got everyone eating out the palm of his hand. He's a very clever man. So
you really think he's got a chance?
Why wouldn't he have a chance? Look how confident he is. Mate, come on. Like, Anthony would have all the pressure in the world, and if Anthony didn't do him with the first few punches, he'd start doubting himself in his head, because that's what he does. But no, Anthony should win, shouldn't he? But that's...
What do you make of Tyson Fury saying that he's going to put $1 million bet on Jake winning by knockout?
Tyson to leg it, lad. He's retired about 50 times. What's he on about, mate? Just tell him to leg it, and I'd love him. If he walked in here, I'd obviously...
At one point, you were good friends.
I'm still good friends, but obviously if he walked in here, I'd act like I'm not talking about him, but then on the camera I'm talking to him. Is this not what we're on?
Fair enough.
Is everyone not fake, or no? We all... What are we on here? Are we all acting like we don't hate each other? Like, come on. Like, what?
You're on absolute smoke today.
Shut your mouth, Tyson.
Duke McKenzie, a former 3-weight world champion and ex-ITV boxing commentator, didn't hold back in criticizing the idea of Anthony Joshua facing Jake Paul, especially in the world of crossover fights. He slammed the growing trend of YouTubers and MMA fighters stepping into boxing, calling it a dangerous misstep. Reflecting on Joshua's bout with ex-UFC champion Francis Ngannou, McKenzie warned it could have ended in disaster, insisting the MMA fighter should never have stepped into the ring with Joshua. He stressed that boxers and MMA pros need to stick to their own arenas, staying in their lanes to protect both safety and the sport's integrity.
To have this fight before a possible fight against Fury.
Well, Eddie Hearn's a promoter first and foremost, and he's in the business of making money. I'm not so sure he's even thinking about anybody's, getting hurt or anything like that. That hasn't even entered his head. But it should, because somebody could easily lose their life.
That's quite a concern, isn't it? I mean, that should be the forefront of everybody's mind.
I think so. I think there's the fight business, and then there's the fight game, and the way they're talking about it, they're talking about it like it's a game. I don't think Anthony Joshua would take Jake Paul lightly, any way, shape or form, and it'd be so easy to hit. You're talking about a trained athlete.
Chael Sonnen joked that Jake Paul would probably try to call out AJ even on fight day if he could, but he reminded everyone that the business doesn't work that way. Sonnen explained that Jake is footing almost the entire bill, from press events to promotion, because he's not just a fighter, he's the promoter. That means he carries the financial weight and can't simply change plans or spring surprises at the last minute. Sonnen stressed that Jake built this path himself, and with that comes responsibility. His money, time, and reputation are all on the line. While many analysts still doubt Jake will actually fight Anthony Joshua, Sonnen believes differently, insisting that Paul was the one who orchestrated this matchup from the start.
What they would do. Do you think this guy would fight this guy? No way. He'd get his ass kicked. So they're telling what they're telling you about themselves. They're letting you know that they would not take a fight that they didn't know that they were going to win. When the person says, mark my words, Jake Paul will pull out of this fight, he might even do it the day of. Pull out of the fight to who? It's his fight. Who is this mystery person? Did you write? Because I know this is a big category. I just read one guy that said this. But I'm talking to a lot of you, aren't I? A lot of you believe that Jake Paul is going to pull out of that fight. Might even do it the day of, correct? Correct? Okay. Who would he pull out to? He is the promoter. Who would he call? Does he send an email to himself? Does he send a text message to himself? Does he schedule a meeting, come in and sit down, across the table and look in the eye himself? Like, it's the part that is the most fascinating about the whole thing, is that Jake would be the one to be the skunk at the garden party. It's his money that has brought us.
Is this fight a mismatched disaster or a high-stakes, unpredictable blockbuster?